Children, come back to online classes. Today we are going to see the last topic in history, chapter number 6, that is iron and steel factories come up in India. So, the year was 1904. In the hot month of April, Charles Weld, an American geologist, and Dorabji Tata, the eldest son of Jamshedji Tata. So here geologist is a person who studies the history of the earth through rocks and rock formations. So Charles Weld was an American geologist. Along with him, Dorabji Tata, the eldest son of Jamshedji Tata, were traveling in Chhattisgarh in search of iron ore deposits. Dorabji Tata was an Indian businessman and a key figure in the history and development of the Tata Group. He was the eldest son of Jamshedji Tata, and Jamshedji Tata founded an organizations like Tata Group, Tata Steel Limited, etc. They had spent many months on a costly venture looking for sources of good iron ore to set up a modern iron and steel plant in India. So they wanted to set up a iron and steel plant in India. So they set out to find the sources for a good iron ore in India. Now, Jamshedji Tata had decided to spend a large part of his fortune to build a big iron and steel industry in India. But this could not be done without identifying the source of fine quality iron ore. One day, after traveling for many hours in the forests, Weld and Darobji came up a small village and found a group of men and women carrying basket loads of iron ore. These people were the Agarias. When asked where they had found the iron ore, the Agarias pointed to a hill in the distance, that is the Rajhara Hills. Weld and Darobji reached the hill after an exhausting trek through dense forest. On exploring the hill, the geologist declared that they had at last found what they had been looking for. Rajhara Hills had one of the finest ores in the world. So at last they found the ores which they are looking for. But there was a problem. That region was dry and water necessary for running the factory. As in geography, we have seen the factors to set up an industry. We have seen many of the factors, that is water, labor, transportation, etc. So the region was dry and water necessary for running the factory was not to be found nearby. So nearby that area, no water was found. The Tatas had to continue their search for a more suitable place to set up their factory. However, the Agarias helped in the discovery of a source of iron ore that would later supply the Bhilai steel plant. Children, you all are knowing the Bhilai steel plant. Some of you might have seen also. Then, a few years later, a large area of forest was cleared on the banks of the river Subarnarekha to set up the factory and industrial township Jamshedpur. Here there was water near iron ore deposits. The Tata Iron and Steel Company, TISCO, that came up began producing steel in 1912. So near the Subarnarekha river, They set up the factory and industrial ownership Jamshedpur. Here there was water was present near iron ore deposits. So that Tata and Iron Steel Company Tisco came up to began producing steel in the year 1912. Tisco was set up at an opportune time. All through the late 19th century, India was importing steel that was manufactured in Britain. Expansion of the railways in India had provided a huge market for rails that Britain produced. For a long while, British experts in the Indian railways, were unwilling to believe that good quality steel could be produced in India. By the time Tisco was set up, the situation was changing. In 1914, the First World War broke out. Steel produced in Britain now had to compete meet the demands of war in Europe. So as the First World War broke, steel produced in Britain had to meet the demands of war implements in Europe. So imports of Britain steel into India declined dramatically and the Indian railways turned to Tisco for supply of rails. As the war dragged on for several years, Tisco had to produce shells and carriage wheels for the war. By 1919, the colonial government was buying 90% of the steel manufactured by Tisco. Over time, Tisco became the biggest steel industry within the British Empire. So, through expansion of the end of the war, to meet the demands of war, Tisco had to expand its capacity and extend the size of its factory. The program of expansion continued after the war. In the case of iron and steel, as in the case of cotton textile, industrial expansion occurred only when Britain imports into India declined and the market of Indian industrial goods increased. This happened during the First World War and after. As the nationalist movement developed and the industrial class became stronger, the demand for government protection became louder. Struggling to retain its control over India, the British government had to concede many of these demands in the last decades of colonial rule. Children, now let us see some of the questions given here. What kind of cloth had a large market in Europe? So, the cloth which had a large market in Europe are chintz, corsets and bandhana. And the next question is, what is Jamdani? Jamdani is a fine muslin on which decorative motifs are woven on the loom, typically in grey and white. Often a mixture of cotton and gold thread was used. Then comes, what is bandhana? Bandhana refers to any brightly colored and printed scarf for the neck or head. Originally, the term derived from the word bandhana, Hindi for tying, and referred to a variety of brightly colored cloth produced through a method of tying and dyeing. Then, who are the Agaria? So, as we have studied today only in our explanation, you have seen that a group of men and women carrying basket loads of iron in Chhattisgarh. These people were the Agarias. Then next, some of the fill-ups are given here. Let us see what is the answer for that. The word chins comes from the word chint. Tipu's sword was made of dash steel, Wood's steel, WOOTZ, Wood's steel. Then next, India's textile exports declined in the century. So, in which century it was declined? In the 19th century. Okay, children, in the remaining question answers you will get very soon. So, this chapter is completed. In the next day, we are going to see the new chapter. Thank you very much, children.